Hi everyone and welcome to the tutorial. Today I will be demonstrating how to work Judy's magic cast on. This is a technique where you cast on 2 sets of stitches over 2 needles and they're actually joined down the middle to create an enclosed shape. It's a great way to start off a toe-up sock because it essentially creates what looks like just another row of knitting in your work, so it's entirely seamless. But because the 2 sets of stitches are joined together, you can then start working in the round and create this lovely sort of pocket shape. You can also use it for things like toys, double-sided scarves. It has a whole range of applications. The written instructions for this technique are quite long, so I'm going to jump in straight away to showing you how to work this cast on. We've got our yarn ready to go and our needles. I like to work this technique using a circular needle, but you can also use double pointed needles if it's your preferred method of working in the round. I hold my needles parallel. I've got 2 needles here and they need to be pointing to the left. This top needle is going to be referred to as needle 1 and this bottom needle will be referred to as needle 2. I've got my yarn here. I want to make sure that I leave a relatively long tail for this technique. For a sock, I'm only going to be casting on somewhere between 6 to 10 stitches on each needle, but depending on what you're using this technique for, you might need a lot more yarn than what I'll need today for those. So just be mindful of the fact that this yarn is going to be eaten up in the cast on, as well as the yarn that's coming from your ball. So just be a little bit generous with how long you leave it. Okay, so the tail end of my yarn goes over my left index finger from front to back. And as I said, I want to make sure it's got a little bit of length to it so I have enough to cast on all my stitches. The yarn which is attached to my ball goes over my left thumb from back to front. So the yarn is basically just draped over these 2 fingers. So holding my needles as I need to, I'm going to take the yarn which is around my index finger and wrap it around needle 1 from back to front, like so. So this is the tail end coming around the front of the needle, and this is the working yarn end going around the back. I'm then going to wrap the yarn around my index finger, around needle 2, also from back to front, but going under and over the needle. So there I've created 1 stitch on each needle. If I adjust the angle, you'll hopefully see that what we've done is create a figure 8 around both needles, and that means that both these stitches are attached together down the center. So that was our setup, just to sort of join the 2 needles together and to create the first stitches. So now we're ready to begin our repeat. We take the yarn which is around our thumb, remember this is the working end of the yarn, and it goes around needle 1 from back to front, going over the top of the needle. We then go to the yarn around our index finger and wrap it around needle 2 from back to front, going under and over. And there I've created 1 more stitch on each needle. Again, the yarn wrapped around your thumb goes over and under needle 1 from back to front, and the yarn around the index finger goes under and over needle 2 from back to front. And these are the steps that we keep repeating to cast on our stitches. Yarn around the thumb goes over and under needle 1 from back to front. Yarn around the index finger goes under and over needle 2 from back to front. Now something to be mindful of is how many stitches your pattern asks you to cast on. At the moment I have 2, 4, 5, I've got 10 stitches all up, but 5 stitches each on needle 1 and needle 2. You just need to be careful that this is what your pattern is asking for and that it isn't asking for, say, 6 stitches, but it means 3 stitches on each needle, or it means six stitches on each needle. Let's pretend that my pattern asks me to cast on 16 stitches total, which is 8 stitches each on needle 1 and needle 2. So I just need, how many have I got there? 2, 4, 6, 1 more on each needle. Okay, and then my cast on is complete. If I try and pull the 2 needles apart, you'll see that I can't. Those stitches are actually joined together. To work my first round, I flip the needle tips so that they're now pointing towards the right. Because I've used a circular needle, I can simply pull needle 2 out, or if you were using double pointed needles, you'd grab another spare one and just start working across the stitches on needle 1. But I'm gonna pull that needle out so that the stitches on needle 2 are now resting on the cable. Grab the working yarn, make sure you're working with that end and not the tail end. So we just let the tail end dangle. And then we simply knit across all the stitches that were on needle 1, just as we would normally. Okay, and that's all the stitches worked there. You might start to see a little more clearly how both of those sets of stitches are actually joined together, and we're starting to get a little sort of pocket shape. We now knit across the stitches on needle 2, so I flip my work around again so that the needle tips are pointing to the right. Pull the cable of my circular needle so that I can return the stitches on needle 2 to actually being on the needle, and pull needle 1 out so that those stitches are now resting on the cable. And now I'm ready to work across the next stitches. One more thing to be mindful of is that I find when I work the stitches on needle 2 that they've been twisted. So as I knit them, I need to actually knit them through the back loop, which untwists them. It won't be so obvious with the first stitch, but you can see there with the second stitch that the front leg of the stitch is actually at the back. So you actually want to knit it through the back loop to untwist it. This is only the case for the first round and the stitches on needle 2. I only do that once, and from here on in subsequent rounds, I don't need to untwist the stitches, they won't be twisted. And it's only the stitches on needle 2 that that's the case for. And there we go, I've just finished knitting across those stitches, and I've totally completed my first round. You'll see that Judy's Magic Cast On has created the effect of a row of knitting, and I can now turn my work into a pocket shape. I can start increasing to create a toe. I could just continue working in the round so that I end up with a tube which is enclosed on one end. There's all different ways that I can use this technique. So that's Judy's Magic Cast On. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, do leave them below.